guys, welcome to another episode of A Cup of Positivity. This week on the podcast, we have the lovely Linda Attram as a guest. For the past 20 years, Linda has been running a successful property business, including a multi-million-pound property portfolio, and she's the founder of Mothers in Business. She's happily married, a proud mother of 3 children, and she has a black belt in the martial art of Taekwondo, so I wouldn't mess with her. But Linda is also passionate about helping mothers in business. Her aim was to create a safe space for mothers to go to share their stories, worries, and to help each other get through the difficulties that are involved when running a business and also being a mother. She is truly an inspiration, and I loved hearing her story, so I hope you do too. So grab a cup of tea, relax, and enjoy the episode. See you soon. Hi Linda, welcome to A Cup of Positivity.
Hi Martha, thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. The weather's not that great outside, but I'm good.
Yeah, it's been raining all morning today, but yeah. I know you don't drink tea, so I normally ask my guests, did you bring your cup of tea with you? But you brought a hot lemon water, right?
That's right, yeah. I've got it in my totally amazing mum cup that my kids got me. I don't know if you can see that, it's a bit bright.
Oh, it's a bit shiny. That's cute though. I know your business is all about being a mum and how to juggle being a mum and an entrepreneur, so it's fitting, your mug.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've got a oh my god, I've forgotten what it is now. It's like an energizing tea. Yeah, but it's one of those, like, it's got berries and stuff in it. It's red, which is my favorite ones, are the berry ones.
Right, okay. And do you feel energized once you...
Well, I've had this one before and it feels nice, like it's like a herbal tea, but I don't know if it makes any difference in terms of energizing me, so I'm not sure about that one. But it tastes good, which is fine.
Yeah, I tend to have lemon and ginger. And I do find that the ginger is quite energizing as well.
Yeah. I only really have ginger when I'm not well, which is probably, I should probably have it more often because it's really good for you, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It is. I love it.
Is there a reason why you don't drink tea, just out of curiosity?
I've never even tried it. I just don't like the smell of it. Tea and coffee, I've never tried it, purely based on the smell. And I have hot water and lemon in the morning, and then I have a juice, like a fresh juice. So I'll blend like apples, celery, and ginger again, and that'll be my breakfast. So
wow,
that keeps me going for a little while.
Is that like your full breakfast is just the juice?
Yeah, and then that'll maybe keep me for about 2.5 hours or so, and then I'll have maybe some like crackers and stuff like that. So I try to eat food that will give me energy, because I've got 3 children, so I need to ensure that I'm as exercised as much as I can throughout the day. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I've never met anyone, I don't think, that doesn't drink coffee or tea.
Oh really?
Yeah. But yeah. So before I start with any questions, for anyone who might not have heard of you, do you want to just do an introduction, who you are and what you do?
Oh, okay, yeah, great. Okay, so I'm Linda Attram, and I am the founder of Mothers in Business, and I founded this company about 2 years ago. So you've probably heard of Mothers in Business before, because there's lots of other sort of companies out there, and businesses that have got similar type names. And so what the difference with us, our USP, is that we focus more on the mother. So it's not so much about, how to create a business, how to, put a business plan together. We look at, some mothers tend to lose themselves through motherhood.
Yeah.
And so it's about helping them to regain their identity again, but also knowing that it is possible, although it's challenging, knowing that it is possible to be a good mum and a good businesswoman at the same time, as long as you've got the right support around you and that you have the right strategies in place as well. So that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. But before that, I had an 18-year career in HR. And at some point during that time period, I also started to run a business and create a business with my husband in property, in real estate. So I had the challenges of having 3 young children, working in a full-time job and setting up a business at the same time, going through the whole sort of mum guilt scenario, thinking, am I spending too much time on my business and not enough time with my children? Am I a bad mum? All that kind of stuff. And I didn't have a platform like the one that I've created to go to. And because of the challenges that I experienced and the, wanting to connect with other mothers that were having similar experiences, that's why I created Mothers in Business. And when I had my children young, when they were younger, and I was trying to establish, if other mothers were suffering the same sort of things or going through the same sort of challenges as me, I couldn't find anyone. And I thought it was just me. I thought, oh, what's wrong with me? But not realizing that a lot of mothers do have those challenges, but they don't necessarily want to talk about it because they don't feel safe enough to talk about it, or they fear that they're going to be judged for being, a bad mum, because they're, as well as, being a mum, they're splitting their time to run a business at the same time. So that's why I wanted to create a safe platform that mothers could come to without fear of judgment. They can get inspired, they can get advice about, how they can move forward to help themselves grow personally as well as professionally. Because the way that I see it is that as mothers, we are, we need to be leaders, because we're creating future leaders. And we can't create future leaders from the sidelines, because our kids will mirror, what we do. They don't necessarily do as we tell them to, but they like to mirror. So we need to be leaders ourselves.
Yeah, that's a really good message as well. If you want your kids to be leaders, then you need to also, that if they're going to mirror you, then step into that role as well. Yeah. How do you think it differs though for men? Because obviously men have some men have their own businesses and are also fathers, but I do feel like it's more difficult for women, but I wonder where that comes from. Like, why is it more difficult?
It's a great question. And I think it's historical. It's always been, the woman who, is the caregiver, the main person to nurture the children, whether they give up their jobs or their careers and choose to be that person at home. Clearly things are changing, and you have the roles reversed now for some men, and they become the house husbands and they take over the caring duties while the wife goes out to work. But the tables haven't turned enough for that to be the norm in society. So I think the general sort of onus out there is that it will be the mother that takes the bulk of the majority of the responsibility for the caring. And I think that, men are quite happy to, allow us to do that. But at the same time, I think men are now becoming much more, what's the word I'm looking for? In tune with, with the whole parenting concept. And they're wanting to get more involved. They're wanting to, be part of those magical moments that children have as they grow up. They want to be part of those milestones, as opposed to perhaps way back when, they kind of blocked out the younger challenging years, the terrible twos and what have you. And then when they're old enough to play football or to do something great or watch a dance performance, then they get involved, like, yeah, I'm the dad sort of thing. They just spring up from somewhere. But I think now that fathers are starting to play a much more active role in parenting, which is fabulous.
Yeah. And then before we go into the Mothers in Business, what was your property journey like with your husband?
It was quite, we're still on the property journey because we still have our portfolio. So initially I didn't want to do it at all because I wasn't a risk taker. And my husband was the one saying, yeah, let's do this. And so what actually happened was, when we met, he had his own house in South London and I had my own flat. in West London,
Okay.
and we wanted to live together. So he suggested that we take some equity out of both of our properties and buy one together, but rent out our existing properties. And that took me a little while to get my head around it because I didn't understand that whole equity thing.
Yeah.
And so eventually he convinced me and we went for it. And then I could start seeing that, you know, by doing this model, it created cash flow. So then we started repeating the process over and over again until we had quite a decent sized portfolio. But we started that before we had children, and then still continued doing that whilst the children were young. And so there would be times where it would be incredibly challenging, because I remember a time when my eldest, who is now, she's 19 now, yeah, she's 19, got that.
Wow.
She's 19, and she was about 4. And so the other 2 were sort of like age 2 and 1, something like that. And we'd be going around to these properties, and in the early days, we couldn't afford to have cleaners. We do everything ourselves. We do all the general maintenance ourselves. And so my kids would get this rug out, and they'd be sitting in the middle of this floor of these dirty properties, just sitting there with their books and their little toys and what have you. And I would feel like the worst mum in the world ever, because I'd be there with the roller painting them, and I'd look over and I'd see them sitting there. You know, they were good kids, and like my 4-year-old literally had the responsibility of playing mum for a few hours every Sunday. And I used to like literally cry inside thinking, what am I doing? Like, is it worth it? What, you know, I should be out, you know, in the park playing with them, or I should be helping them to make cakes or do something fun, you know, not dragging them around to properties every weekend. But we had to do what we had to do. And, you know, I talk a lot to mothers about this type of thing, because I felt guilty. But when I talked to my kids about it, they actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that at the time. They actually enjoyed coming out of the house, going into different properties all of the time, watching mummy and daddy paint away or do whatever we were doing. And they were learning from that experience. And, you know, I think a lot of mum guilt is what we put in our own head, what we think people are going to be thinking, not necessarily what is actually how it's impacting on the child. So, you know, people often say to me, would I do that again? And yes, I would, knowing what I know now.
Yeah.
That, you know, that inspired my children to know that, you know, as well as me being a mum, I can still do other things. I'm not just tied to the home looking after them. I can still create wealth, you know, support my family and my husband to create wealth for our kids and to create a legacy for them, which is very, very important. Because for me, it's about my children having choices, and you can have choices through whatever channels of wealth creation you have, but also to know that for my son, you know, if he chooses to get married or have a partner when he's older, if they decide to have a baby, you know, for them to know that, or for him to know that his wife or partner doesn't have to stay at home if she doesn't want to. If she wants to have as well, then, you know, then she can. And he's only 13, and he knows that from now. Well, he knew it from before anyway. And then for my girls who are 19 and 15, exactly the same. You know, when they make their choices to have whichever partners they want in the future to have as their lifelong partners, to know that they do have a choice. And although society might have a different point of view, it's their choice. And the only way that they're going to learn that is by observing and mirroring and seeing what I'm doing. It's, you know, if I was a stay-at-home mum, and there's nothing wrong with stay-at-home mums, and I'm not saying that women have to go into business at all.
Yeah.
But if I was a stay-at-home mum, and then my children, you know, got to an age where they were having their own children, and I was advocating, oh, you should do something different, you should have a business, they're going to be looking at me and thinking, well, you didn't do it, so why should I do it? And, you know, that's not really encouraging me, as in they were saying that I'm not really encouraged to do that. And it's, you know, I also I see that in every part of parenting as well. So, for example, I know when I went to school, you know, there were no after school activities.
Yeah.
now there's like loads out there for children to choose from. And my children, they all learnt the art of Taekwondo from the age of 3 because my husband taught them. And so I got fed up of taking them to the classes all the time. Not that I didn't want to take them, but I liked taking them. But I just felt that I was wasting my time, like sitting there for an hour, 2 hours watching them, when there were also adults that could do Taekwondo. So I took the decision that I didn't want to carry on washing their uniforms. I wanted to wear one. And so I decided to start Taekwondo about 4 or 5 years ago. And I was petrified, absolutely petrified. I wasn't in the same class as my children. I went to a completely different club. And it was full of all of these young teenage boys, full of testosterone, really strong. And I was the grandma in the class. And I'm like, what am I doing here? This is just wrong. And but because I'd committed to myself that I wanted to do it, I continued. And I thought, I'm just going to do this for exercise, just get me out of the house, because, I had the support of my husband to look after the kids whilst I went to the class. And then it became a habit. And then I just absolutely loved it. And then I said I wasn't going to grade, it's just for exercise. And I carried on grading. I started going to national competitions.
Wow.
And all sorts. And then like last Sunday, I graded for my second degree in my black belt. So I got my first degree about 2 years ago, and I'm on my second degree now. So it just goes to show that, because you're a mum, it doesn't mean that you have to be a traditional mum. You do have choices. Clearly you need to, plan and organize your time to fit things in. And it depends on, the ages of your children as to how flexible you can be. Certainly I couldn't have done all of this when my kids were like 2, 3, 4, that sort of age. But I think a lot of mothers tend to lose themselves through motherhood, forget who they were originally prior to having a child, and don't realize that they can still be a mum and have a great time and have a business and have their own activities, their own dreams, their own passions as well. And that's something that I speak a lot about to my clients.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you were saying about you felt guilty taking the kids to the properties and things like that. Again, I think it's the danger of like shoulding yourself, like I should be doing this or I should be doing that because I'm a mother. But like a lot of that I think comes from outside influences, whether it's people around you or society or whatever you think in your mind you should be doing. But your kids, like you say, were enjoying it. And also you're doing all of that for them predominantly, because you're leaving them something, when you're no longer here, they'll have, a legacy that you left behind for them. Yeah. Which I think is the main thing, right? I think it's amazing as well that now that they're older, you've also got clarification from them that actually they were having a great time.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
That's amazing.
And even now when they're, they're on half term or on summer holidays or whatever, if we're not away, I get them involved in the business. Whether it's do some filing or come round and do an inventory or whatever, and they get a little bit of extra pocket money, and they really enjoy it because they're more energized. They've got more energy than I've got. So, anything that I can delegate out to them, I will do that. And for me, it's about doing better. So it's not just about creating a new legacy. It's about the legacy that was left to me by my parents or by my mum, because my mum's passed away, my dad is still here. The legacy that they passed down to me, what can I do in this new world to make my children's lives better? And we say to our kids as well, we would like you to make your children's lives better, and for that to continue for legacies to come, because my parents are from the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. And so they came over here in the 1950s in the Windrush generation. And my mum, she was the eldest of 16 children. Mm-hmm. And so for her to leave all of her siblings behind, come to a completely new country with no other family members here, and she actually had 2 children that she left behind in the Caribbean with her mum to look after while she's, you know, settled herself. To make that sort of decision to come into a new country, I don't even think I could do that. You know, I couldn't even imagine if I had, like, you know, 15 brothers and sisters, to leave them and go into a completely new country just with my husband. I wouldn't even go there. But, you know, she had the bravery, her and my dad had the bravery and the courage to do that, to start a new life here and just make a life for themselves. So I've got the opportunity of being here because I was born here. So what can I do better to make the legacies, you know, going forward even better than the opportunities I had?
Yeah. And my mum's the same, actually, because she came here from South America on her own, actually, when she was, I think, 19. And
Young, yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah.
But she was just not really happy with the life she had. She wanted more for herself and, you know, more opportunities. So she came here and worked her ass off, really, for everything she has now. So, yeah. And it's about teaching your kids that, you know, that hard work and graft pays off.
Yes, exactly.
But I mean, also that you're teaching them about wealth and how to generate wealth, because I feel like growing up, my schooling didn't teach me about wealth or how to make money or investing or anything to do with that. And so you're teaching that at home, which is amazing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you know, they're privileged to go to a great school, and we're thankful for that. But, you know, there are elements of the education system that they don't get to hear about. And we feel that it's our job to open their eyes to that so they can make their own choices when they leave school. They make the choice if they want to go down route A, route B, whatever, just as long as they're informed.
Yeah.
It's very, very important for them to, you know, to understand the principles from an early age of wealth creation, because a lot of people, as in adults, tend not to understand those principles of wealth creation. Everyone knows how to make money by getting a job, but in terms of creating wealth, not everyone has that education. And if they do, it tends to be because they've gone through some rough period and they need to adjust and they need to, you know, create wealth at a much older age.
Yeah.
If we can instill that into our children from an early age, then they have more choices.
Mm-hmm. And with the Taekwondo, you've been doing it for how long did you say?
About 4.5 years now.
Yeah. And how has that, like, influenced your everyday life as well? I imagine, like, discipline wise, it must.
Yeah, it has an impact on my life and everything that I do, because we have these things called the tenets of Taekwondo, such as courtesy, perseverance, indomitable spirit. So when I'm being a parent, you know, I have to obviously instill those into my parenting skills. And it's also very important that I instill that into my business as well, into my clients, into my code of honor that I have with all of my clients. So it's not just about using it, you know, 2 hours a week when I train for 2 nights a week. It's part of my life, and it's a great tool, not necessarily just for me, but for my children as well, in terms of discipline. And you know, if I've had a really bad day, I get to kick about on a pad or, you know, whatever, and it just helps to relieve that frustration, and it's good for your fitness as.
Yeah. And then obviously your clients are all mothers, right?
Yeah.
What do you think in particular that they're struggling with, like, within business or being a mother and an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really depends on what age and stage their children are at. So, you know, I recently had a lady in one of our mastermind sessions that has a baby that's only a few months old, and she has a burning desire to create a business that she hasn't created as yet, but is feeling frustrated because she hasn't got those pockets of time yet to be able to focus on doing that. So that then leads to frustration and overwhelm because she's trying to cram too many things in. Whereas it's great to sort of dream and think about what you need to do. But then if you don't physically have the time or the support, or you're not able to delegate things, you need to then plan that out. Plan, it might be that you set up your business in 6 months or a year or 5 years down the line, as opposed to I want to do it now and I'm still breastfeeding and I'm, bringing Johnny to playgroup. It needs to be in a controlled way that's not going to have an impact on their health.
Yeah.
So one of the key things is about time management, how to fit everything in, how to start a business, and once they do start, how do they manage that mum guilt? Because often mothers, they'll be beavering away in the middle of the night doing whatever, and their child's calling them for that bedtime story, and they're like, oh, just 5 minutes, and they finish off this email, and you run upstairs and they're like fast asleep, and then you think, oh, I've missed that opportunity.
Yeah.
Other issues that come up is mothers feeling that they're not good enough, they don't have enough self-belief within themselves, and certainly for me, I have a bit of a backstory, but anyway, as a younger person, I had a lot of self-esteem issues, low confidence, and so I managed to get over that in my early 20s. But then when I started having my children in my early 30s, I then reverted back to what I was as a child in terms of my confidence, which was incredibly frustrating for me, because I thought I'd worked through that. Yeah. And now I'm an adult, why am I going back to feeling like that? So it's those sorts of issues that are risen amongst the mothers that I work with. A lot of mothers still are not at that stage where they feel comfortable to be able to talk about those types of things, because they don't want to be judged. They don't want people to think that they're not coping. But there's lots of support out there, much more now than there was when I was having my children 19 years.
Yeah. But I mean, how do you deal with that guilt then? Do you just keep going regardless, or?
Well, what works for me might not necessarily work for you or for anyone else. You have to figure out what your happy medium is. At the time when I was going through it, I didn't know what was going to work. So I did just carry on working through it. I just thought, well, I either stop or I just keep going, and I'm going to find my way. But looking back on it now, dependent on the age of the child, I would certainly make sure that your child knows what you're doing, that you are creating a business because you're creating wealth, and you're creating it for them as part of their legacy, for their journey. So they understand what you're doing. So they understand, when your child might say, Johnny might say, oh, Mummy, can you look at my homework, or can you listen to me read? And you'll say, oh, in 5 minutes. And then Johnny might be like, oh, I want you to listen to me now. And they might think that, you're ignoring them, but you're not. But if they understand what you're doing, then that will make that a lot easier. And also, if there's opportunities that you can get them involved in the business, even if it's just a conversation, oh, this is what I did today, that kind of stuff, then they get to feel that they're part of that journey, as opposed to being an add-on.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the guilt comes in, because as mothers, when we don't have that time for our children because we're busy beavering away, juggling everything else, everything seems like it's an add-on, and everything seems bigger than it actually is, because we can't step back and look at it objectively. So for me, managing mum guilt is about being honest with your children, and also with your partner, because you might not be in a partnership where you're both in business, or even in business together. One might be working or one might not be working, and they don't understand what you're doing at all. So it's about the communication. That's the first port of call, I would say, is communicating with those around you to understand what it is you're doing, and why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. And then tell us about your book, The Mind of Female Entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so I've got it here actually. So this is a book that came out last year, and it was part of a a networking group that I'm part of, which is called Global Woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I joined Global Woman as a networking organization because I didn't used to like networking. I used to go to all these property networks, and it's full of men.
Oh, they're awful, aren't they? Because I also I manage property and I'm an investor as well. So I've been to some of those, and I can't stand them.
They're very pretentious, and everyone wants to know like how many properties you got, this, that, and the other. They might as well ask you how much have you got in your bank account. So and I just was not comfortable. I used to go to them because I thought I needed to go to them to just get in, find out what the strategies are or whatever. So anyway, I stopped going to them for a while because a lot of them were in the evenings. They were outside of London, and I didn't want to, even if they were in London, I didn't want to be getting on the tube, and so I stopped. So anyway, Global Woman, their platform, they were doing breakfast meetings. So I thought, this is interesting. Let me just at least give it a try. And it's going to be with women. So, sometimes, women all together, they get on, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
So I gave it a go, and I went to a free session, and I loved it. I just loved the atmosphere. They give you the opportunity to speak on their sort of mini stage for 2 minutes about your business. So that in itself helps you, if you haven't been networking for a little while, it helps you to craft your pitch, and it's safe because you can make your mistakes in front of these women, because they may end up being your key clients, some of them, and they may not, but everybody is starting from the same position. So anyway, that's how I got into this book, because part of that networking, there are other opportunities to do different things as well. So they were doing this book collaboration, and they if other women wanted to share their stories in there. So that's how I applied to do that, and that's how I co-authored that book with them. So there's about 12 of us in the book that share our stories about being entrepreneurs. Some are mothers and some are not.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talk about my journey right from childhood to present day.
Oh, wow. So how can people get hold of that book?
It's available on Amazon. Yeah, The Mind of Female Entrepreneurs, How to Succeed and Act in Business.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you can get it as a Kindle version and also a paperback.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And then I saw on your blog as well that you mentioned the importance of feeling good inside and out. So how do you manage your overall health and wellness to ensure that you're always feeling good, both inside and out?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that question. I'm married to a bit of a health freak.
Okay. That's always good.
He's far more healthier than me. He's a vegan. Him and my eldest daughter are vegans. I'm a pescatarian. Myself and my other pescatarians, and then my son just eats anything. He loves burgers. So quite a mixture. So for me, it's really important to have a balanced diet, because energy is everything. When you've got 3 kids, you need to have a lot of energy. So I start off my day well, or at least I try to start off my day well with my hot water and my juicing and having a good lunch and dinner. But there are times when I get very busy and I don't eat when I should do. I eat late at night because I love when everyone's gone to bed and it's just me in the house, and I can just eat and just chill out on my own, as opposed to eating at the same time as everyone else. But that's just the way I am. But I have heard quite a few mothers say that as well, actually. They like to just have that quiet time in the evening. But so your actual question was, how do I balance it?
How do you manage your overall health and wellness?
Yeah, so by my structure with my eating, but also with Taekwondo as well. And I love bouncing. I've got one of those little bouncers. I've only recently started going on those, and they're really great because they're like these little mini trampolines that the kids all love anyway.
Okay.
And you don't have to do hardly anything. You just bounce on it. You just stand and bounce on this thing, and apparently it's really good for your cellulite. And it's like you've got earphones on or whatever, or there's something you want to watch on the TV. instead of just sitting there, you know, slouched on the couch,
you can just bounce.
yeah, and you know, just on your feet, just bounce. If you want to do star jumps, you do star jumps, or whatever. And I sometimes do when I do my morning affirmations or my gratitude process, I do it on there outside, but obviously in the summer when the weather's nice, I do it out in the garden. Just take the bouncer out there. Neighbours looking at me like I'm mad.
I need to look into this bounce. Is it just like a small one person?
Yeah, a small one person mini trampoline. I'm sure it's got some other technical word for it, but it's just like a little mini bouncer. Yeah.
Okay.
Like a mini trampoline.
Yeah.
A round one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how do you juggle everything you've got going on? Because you've got the property thing, you've got mothers in business, and you've got a family as well. So, and the Taekwondo, like, I can't imagine how you keep all those plates spinning.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder myself. So I like to create what I call white space in my diary, because not so long ago, you know, I was a complete control freak, and I still am to some extent, but not so much as I used to be.
Mm.
So I'm very old school. I write everything down in my diary with a pen. I'm not into this writing on my phone and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And so I get great satisfaction when I can put a line through or a tick through something as it's been done. I think, yes, it looks wonderful. My diary kind of looks, I won't even show you. It looks crazy with all the lines that go through it.
Yeah.
And, but I learned through a hard lesson to create the white space, because I would put, you know, maybe 10, 15 things down a day that I wanted to achieve that wasn't achievable. And I would literally beat myself up thinking I wasn't good enough. I couldn't do, you know, the time was just running away with me, and it wasn't good for my health. It wasn't good for my well-being. So then I've now decided to just have 3 to 4 key, like major key things that need to be done. And anything else on top of that is a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I have the white space is because stuff happens, you know, stuff happens that you don't plan. And you need to be able to, you know, to ascertain some time for that, especially in, you know, in the property business. You know, tenants can do whatever, and you know, I run serviced apartments as well, like serviced accommodation. Although my staff do the day to day, but you know, if there's something not quite right, I need to be involved or be informed. So I need to create that white space, and then I have chunks of time where I say, okay, it's dedicated to that. Like my Taekwondo, that's non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, unless something major comes up or my kids are ill or something like that, you know, my Tuesdays and Thursdays are at a specific time are dedicated to Taekwondo.
Okay.
And then my work, I tend to, because I work from home anyway, regardless of COVID, which is, you know, a great benefit, because I can then maneuver things around. I'm not accountable to a boss or anything like that, but by having 3 to 4 key things helps me so that I can have a lot more flexibility. And I don't really like working on a Friday, and if I do, it's light stuff like interviews and this kind of stuff I don't mind doing, but you know, getting my head down and getting busy on a Friday, no. I like to sort of go into the weekend, because I'm still busy on the weekend taking kids to fencing or hockey or whatever they're doing. So I need that time free, and then I'm not on it again till the Monday, unless it's something urgent around.
Yeah. And then what is the Mothers in Business Mastermind Club?
So the Mothers in Business Mastermind Club is something that was created out of lockdown.
Okay.
Yeah, because we used to do live experiential events for mothers in business. So they'd come along, we'd have an event in a hotel, and there'd be myself and 3 other speakers, including my eldest daughter as well.
Wow.
She'd come along, yeah, she was 18 at the time. We'd go through a series of experiential exercises to help them bring themselves back through motherhood, to realise that they are individuals as well as mothers, and helping them to set goals, you know, going forward in the future. Real sort of inspirational, empowering stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had our last event literally a week before the weekend before we went into lockdown. And then I soon realized that, the world's changing. I can't do, it's not guaranteed that I can go back and do that sort of thing. So I had to look at how I was going to still provide that same level of service, but in a different way. So I created the mastermind groups that are online. So this is a safe platform that mothers come to, and you can come along to a free discovery session to find out, what it's all about. So what we do is we have a code of honor. So everybody comes with their positivity. They come to talk about a challenge or an opportunity that they may be experiencing with motherhood or with their business. And as a group together of like-minded mothers, we will help that mother with their particular challenge or opportunity. We'll give them ideas and suggestions and some tips.
Yeah.
So everyone comes with a different business. It doesn't mean that, somebody might want to be a dietitian or have a dietitian business. It doesn't mean we have to be experts in that, but the type of question they come up with, somebody somewhere is going to be able to help them. And so that's the true purpose of a mastermind, as opposed to, you have some masterminds out there where people will say, yeah, come along to a mastermind, and it's like a training session. They're being taught at.
Yeah. So it's more like a workshop.
Yeah. It is a workshop, but with all of the participants actually contributing as opposed to listening and just taking notes. And the other important thing that we do is we make sure that everybody is present. And when I say present, I mean that they're in the Zoom room, they're not distracted on their phones or anything like that. We go through an exercise where we ask them what they feel like saying, and we also ask them what is their win for the day or for the week. And when they do that, we celebrate like crazy. We don't just say, oh, Martha. No, we're like, fist pumping and
that's
clapping,
lovely.
and we have some music going on in the background and stuff like that, just to make them feel safe and secure, feel that they're being listened to, they're being heard, and they're being congratulated. And these wins that they're having, I'm not talking about, oh, I just got a new client, or I just closed a $1,000 deal or whatever. It could be something as basic as, I managed to have a nice relaxing bath last night instead of a rush shower.
Yeah.
Or I managed to get the kids off to school today without shouting at them.
Oh.
All of those things are wins.
I love that. It sounds like a really safe environment as well.
Yeah. And we keep the groups really small for that same reason, because some people, they run masterminds of 20, 40, 100 people. You're not going to do that. You're not going to feel safe in that sort of environment as a mother anyway. So we keep them small, like, 6, 7 people.
Okay. And who would you say are your biggest inspirations?
Thank you for that question. My biggest inspiration would be my mum, for the pure fact that, she made that journey across all those waters many, many years ago and created a life for herself. She didn't go to school, and what school she went to was, she didn't come out with any qualifications or anything like that. So when she came over here, she had lots of housekeeping, cleaning jobs, but she worked tirelessly, and she was able to save. And at some point she went back to the Caribbean and she built her own house out there. Actually, she built 2 houses out there. And, I'm just so super, super proud of her that what she achieved with no education. And so myself with education, what can I do,
Yeah. Okay. So I always finish off my interviews with what I call top three. So it's just 3 questions, and they start with top 3. The first one is top 3 tips for women who are struggling to juggle motherhood and business.
So top 3 tip number 1 would be to ask for help.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And my second tip would be to delegate wherever you can. And the third tip would be to plan and organize your day.
Do you think with the ask for help one, that's kind of like comes hand in hand with the guilt thing? Because I feel like a lot of the time there's that guilt about having to ask for help, or like feeling like they need help.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's so true. And even if they get help handed on a plate, and I'm a classic example of that, because of that guilt, they don't want to accept it.
Yeah.
I remember when I, in the earlier days when I was working, doing the properties and When things started getting a bit better and we were having more cash flow, my husband said, you're doing a lot. So, why don't we get some help around the house? Why don't we get a cleaner just to come once a week or just to help out with the ironing and all of that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
And although, I knew it was a good idea, but I was like, no, I don't want a cleaner. My mum never had one. Ironing, she got on with it every Sunday. She washed the clothes by hand. She got on with it. So, and she had four girls. So, if she could do it, I must be able to do it.
Mm.
And then he went on and on and on. And then eventually we got a cleaner. But I did not take to that because I literally, for weeks, the first few weeks she was there, I went round cleaning my house before she arrived because I didn't want her to think that I had a dirty house. And
Was that not more stressful for you?
It was, but then it also gave me this mad satisfaction that she was walking into my house and it looked all right, as opposed to it being all dirty and dusty. But that was just the Miss Perfectionist in me.
Yeah.
But then after a little while, I realized that this lady at the time, wow, this is amazing. Look at all the time she's freeing up for me, because ironing, I know some people love it. I cannot stand ironing.
Oh, I can't either.
And it takes up so much of your time. And so just freeing up that hour, that 2 hours, whatever, it was a whole sort of mindset change for me.
Mm.
And I had to stop those little voices in my head making up all of those excuses as to why I didn't need any help.
Yeah.
But now I'm just, anyone offers me help, I'm like, yes, please. I'm not even hesitating at all.
Yeah.
It's part of the journey we have to go through. Not everyone's going to be happy to just say, yeah, come in my house and help me out. Especially if you want to, you just want to be proud of what you're doing for yourself. You want to prove to yourself that you can be a good mum, because I always say, this road, this journey of motherhood doesn't come with any handbook. It doesn't come with any qualifications. You don't get a shiny certificate at the end of it. You're just proving it to yourself that you are good enough and that you are a good mum. And we think that everyone else is judging us, but they're not. They're too busy doing whatever else they need to do to be worried about us. But we just have that in our head.
Yeah. Okay. And then the next one is top 3 tips to increase self-confidence and low self-esteem.
Yeah, that's a big one. Self-confidence and low self-esteem, because I've been through that journey twice, and both times it was really, really hard for me. It wasn't until I went through a life-changing major event when I was really old, like when my mum passed away 10 years ago, or 10 and a bit years ago, that I realized that a lot of my years were wasted being a people pleaser and doing things that I thought other people wanted me to do, or to say, or to hear, or to look in a certain way, and things like that. And through my mum going and that deep loss, because I grieved for her. I literally cried every day for 3 years.
Wow.
I really did suffer. And through the healing process of that was when I gained my self-confidence and my self-esteem, because I realized that it didn't serve me to be a people pleaser, because life can just go like that, and you have to make the most of it. So I'm not suggesting out to anyone listening to this that you go through that experience to get your confidence back, but that's what it was. That's what it was for me. And, there's so much more out there in terms of, motivational tapes and programs and courses and things like that that you can get for free, or you can pay a fortune for. But I think you utilize all of the resources, but the biggest thing is about, what you tell yourself in your mind. It's about getting around that mind freak of, oh, I'm too scared to do this, or I'm too scared to do whatever.
Yeah.
So-and-so's going to say this about me, and I'm going to be judged. Also with our children, if we don't feel that a lot of this self-confidence and self-esteem also comes from us loving ourselves. If we're not comfortable to love ourselves as us and in our own being, then how can we then be this confident person or have great, have great self-esteem? Because it's all going to be an act, it's not going to be real. For me, the top tip is learning to love yourself first before you can learn to love others. And that goes true for, your relationships as well, because your kids will see that as well. They'll see the sort of relationships that you're having, and if you're not happy, then, do something about it, because that will have a knock-on effect with your children. So I would say love yourself first, and, look for resources that can help you to, improve your self-confidence, your self-esteem. Do things out of the box.
Yeah.
When you think you're going to be judged, just give it a go. Just give something a try, like I did with Taekwondo, and just you'll realize that it's not as bad as you think. And think about what is the possible worst thing that can happen, and it's probably not even that bad. If you just give something a go.
Okay, and then the last one is top 3 steps to take if you have a business idea but don't know where to start.
So if you don't know where to start, I would advise that you don't rattle your brain trying to do it all on your own. Get some help. Look at others that are doing what you're doing, people that you emulate to be like. Yeah. And try and mirror them. There's so much stuff out there on social media now. You can follow people, follow their journeys. You can ask them questions, private messages or whatever, to find out how their journey has gone. Because on social media there is a lovely picture of whatever, but nobody really knows the journey people have gone through until you have that conversation. And I think for some people, they think people just end up in this wonderful place. They just throughout the sky, and they're there, and it's they're blessed, and instead of finding out about the story and realizing that everybody has to go through a journey, and it's only through making those mistakes through your journey that's when the real learning happens. So I would say don't go it alone. If networking is your thing, fine. If it's not, use social media to follow people that are connected in the field that you're interested in, to get some inspiration as well. Things like our Mastermind group, if you're a mother and you're looking to go into business, that's a great sort of platform to get that sort of advice, get that sort of guidance, have that sisterhood environment where you feel supported. The worst thing that anyone can do is just try and go it alone. Yeah. Because it's just not gonna. You'll find all sorts of excuses under the sun as to why you can't do X, Y, and Z. And you need that. Sometimes we just all need that push, somebody to keep us going, to hold us accountable, so that we can move forward. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Lastly, is how can people connect with you? And do you have anything coming up, any events or anything? Okay, thank you. So yes, anyone can connect with me on Facebook or Instagram, and my handle is @InspiringMothersInBusiness on both, on Facebook and Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn under my name, Linda Attram. That's ATTRAM. And we have a website that is called mothersinbusiness.co.uk. You can subscribe for a free ebook there, or just follow our blogs on there as well. And we have information on there about our Mothers in Business Mastermind groups. And like I said, we have these free sessions that are held on the first Friday of every month. So any mother is, entitled to come along and experience the journey. That's awesome. So in terms of what I've got coming up, we're continuing with our mastermind groups. We have a 6-month program for those that like the discovery sessions and want to continue doing it on a fortnightly basis. And we've also got a mentoring program as well that's run by me, and you get to spend personal time with me to help you improve your business. Yeah. But we also have, as part of our mentoring program, what we call Meet the Expert. So we have other expert mothers that they can mastermind with as
cool.
well, like mothers that are at, you know, a much higher level, and that they can share their journey and inspire mothers as well to, you know, to progress.
That sounds amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I've loved talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great. It's been lovely.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing what else you have coming up.
Thank you. And it's been a pleasure.
Okay, bye.